Well, let's talk about brand versus events now. I mean, the interesting thing is that again, it's kind of tactics versus building up the base. I see it in that way at least, where
Mhm.
you need to invest in brand. You need to be strong enough that when you're in that room, you have a lot of cachet enough for the person to say, "Yeah, I'm taking you seriously. I'm going to have this sales conversation." But at the same time, you can't invest everything in brand. You have to go out and do real field marketing, right? You have to make the folks out there understand the value that you bring and the updates that you've made and the new things that you're releasing and all that. So how do you think about, you know, doing more kind of content production, more kind of brand building versus actually creating that human to human connection?
Well, I think it's a bit of mix of both, right? There's of course the question is not what would you choose, one this brand versus event, but it's like how do you optimize between the in the your
The
investment?
mix. Yeah, exactly.
What's the
Yeah.
perfect mix for you? And while I say the brand creates that pull, that reach that you want, a brand basically gives you the right to be in the top, 3 to 4, shortlist of the customer. And then basically your events, are basically the tool which takes you from those list of 4 customer to be the final one which gets selected, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
think there is a role that a brand plays in this journey, and then of course the role which an event plays. Now, it would be very difficult for anyone, I guess, to put an investment number. Why? Because it depends on what is the efficiency of each of your engine that you're deploying for your brand initiatives, and what kind of events are you doing, right? And at each stage, of course, there is some sort of conversion involved. Even if you're looking at, for example, brand, now there are ways in which you measure your brand efficiency in terms of how's your top of the funnel looking like. You look at top of the funnel metrics like engagements, etc., to understand website visits and so on and so forth, to look at, okay, what exactly is happening there. Would that number Is that number good enough with the kind of investments you're making? But then the second point is, if your conversion strategy is not good, then no matter how much you're investing on brand, you'd probably end up not having a very effective ROI for what
Yep.
you're. And this becomes even more challenging in a multi-brand, heterogeneous kind of heterogeneous brands like Microsoft, SAP, some of the brands that I've worked with, right? So that's where this kind of challenge, I'd say, in a way multiplies, right? Because there you are trying to, probably if you're representing a sub brand, then you're trying to identify your own identity within the main brand, leverage the brand itself, the principle, the master brand, and then how do you connect your value proposition to the overall proposition of the brand. I hope I'm making sense there.
So you've talked, I mean, you've talked about this really great, metric in the way of thinking about it, which is not how much do I invest in each of the brand
Yeah.
versus events. It's how do I make sure this engine is running efficiently so that I know my dollars are getting spent. So what I'm really wondering now is, all right, you're looking at this from a top down level. You've got to figure out what you're going to spend in each area. How do you know that it is being efficient? How do you measure efficiency in both camps? How do you figure out when it's time to invest some time here on the left or invest some time on the right?
Great question. I think it's about keeping track of your conversion rate throughout the funnel. And it's how is your top of the funnel strategy, whether it's working or not, right? Whether you're getting enough eyeball with the target personas that you have in mind, whether the buying committee is interested. So you have to look at some of the metrics there, like what is the depth per account that you have in terms of the buying persona engagements, for example, right? How many accounts you've been able to reach with some of the top of the funnel content. Then comes the second part, that now since you've got your customers hooked on to your content, then what is it that you are offering them to really convert? Now, I'll give you a small example there. There was a time where we were doing this webinar, which was placed as somewhere in the middle of the funnel. We've got a lot of engagement from, and this was a tax solution that I was talking about way back. And when we sent out certain emailers to the target set of customers who have engaged with us in the past on the solution, there were hardly any response from that. And when we reviewed that content, we realized that we are again, we have fallen into the trap of the same navel gazing content, right? Which is basically inside out. So we went back, did some research, and came back that what is it that the customer is looking for? And we realized that the customer said, that there was certain tax solution. We said that, our solution can help you get 18% of your input tax credit. If you'd like to learn how, join this webinar. Right now, that was a very powerful. When we sent the communication with that, we saw a huge, an amazing amount of conversion there. Right, about just by a couple of emails, we had hundreds and hundreds of people joining in for that webinar, out of few thousands of targets page that we had, and it was widely successful. But then when we were delivering that content, we have to ensure that we keep in mind the problem statement which the customer has signed up for. And that's where you would see a better conversion, right? So the problem statement was, how do I solve for an input tax credit, right? Which is basically about 18%. Now, when I am showing that middle of the funnel solution capability, I need to ensure that it's not talking about, the speed of the solution or how many records it can process. Customer is not there for that, right? It's actually talking about the key financial metrics and how you're solving for that. So stick to that and deliver it convincingly. So that's basically gives the better conversion. So now, so I think what I'm trying to get at is that we need to at all times review our content strategy, because that would determine how your conversions look like. If you have great content which is connected across your funnel, then you would probably see better conversions from top to bottom and much better ROI of your marketing investments.
I hear you saying a couple of things which I think are really interesting and so relevant to the kinds of things we do. I mean, first thing, navel gazing content, as we've talked about, just now, is so important to just stay away from it, and maybe to understand also, you're not always going to understand what navel gazing content is until you put it into market and you say, oh, this isn't performing. So just really having the ability to go out and do that research. And absolutely. I personally think a lot of folks feel like research is this really big behemoth thing that is so scary and it's going to cost so much money, and I'm going to do it and then I might not get my ROI from it, and it's not creating content, so the content has to be like pushed out too much. It's kind of nerve-wracking. I think that going out and doing the research can be actually quite simple, and there are ways to, in my view, even if you speak to just a small number of customers, I'd say that's a win versus speaking to no one and just coming from a kind of an internal perspective.
Totally. I think, the best opportunity that you have to do your own research is go and talk to the customer. I've seen a lot of marketers right now sit in the corner, or probably just managing that event that they were supposed to, where you have such a huge opportunity of engaging with your customers to understand what's keeping them awake at night, right? So I think it's so important that as marketers, we don't feel shy of talking to customers about their business problems, their issues, and that of course needs us as marketers to be well aware of what are the solutions that we offer and what kind of business problems. So you need to be a bit of a subject matter expert in some way, right? But yeah, so that at least you can get a feeler of what your customer wants and can translate it into effective assets and communication.
I hear a lot of our clients who are marketers saying, look, I'm not going to go talk to our customer because I have this business partner who is in the room with these customers every day and deeply understands their, problems and their plight. My opinion, I don't know, feel free to disagree with me, Prateek. I'm curious what you think, but I think that those business partners are very, very valuable.
Yeah.
But I also think that if you are only relying on secondhand or third-hand information that's filtered through people who work inside your organization, that you do open up a risk that you are going to create that navel-gazing content, and that at least going out to a few folks and speaking to them directly from the marketing department, I think can give you incredible insight that might be glazed over by a business partner who's, done this for 20 years and isn't really thinking about that kind of research, that kind of curiosity mindset, who is always in that sales mode, 10 steps ahead of the marketer. So what do you think? I think there's value to, like, if you have business partners in your organization who can give you information about the buyer, I think that's great. But I'm not sure that's enough. What do you think?
Yes and no. Actually, at times we are marketers. We are really pushed in the back end, and we do not have opportunities at time to really go and engage with the customers. I'm saying if you get it, make the most use of it. But if you don't, I think we should definitely never lose an opportunity to engage with the people who do have that opportunity and get that feedback. We should know to ask the right question.
That's probably the most important thing, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. Because it's never easy for us to really go and have a conversation and to get exact insights that you want from a sales guy who would probably just talking to you about the next opportunity or lead that you're going to give, which is going to close and help him make his bonus. So that's where I think we need to find ways to do it. Research, as you said, are not expensive. Insights are available all across. There are so much of insights available in the data that you have. The marketing data is so rich. You can just, if you could really spend time and you know what to look for, I think there's enough insights available and, to understand what customers is really looking for.
Yeah, I love that. Maybe that's a good place to start. Instead of immediately saying, well, I have to do research, it's what data do I have now? What can I mine? What have I not looked at? What have I overlooked? What have I assumed that I knew that maybe I didn't? Totally. And I think, at the end of the day, it comes down to humility a little bit and understanding that
absolutely
we think we know the customer, we think we know what content we're making, but if the content we're putting out there is not working, then we have to kind of look back at ourselves and say, we've done something wrong. And the only thing we can do is move forward, and let's use the data. Let's do research as needed, and we'll go out there and we'll do better tomorrow, right?
Absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit about account-based marketing, because obviously such a big thing, and for large enterprises like SAP, I imagine a huge benefit, because you can really get to know companies, their individual struggles, and be a little bit more effective.
Yeah. So ABM is such a powerful tool, and I have always been a strong believer of what it can do, especially with your top accounts, right? First of all, an account-based market, as you rightly said, is basically marketing when you put account in the center of the entire conversation, right? So it's like marketing to one, right? And it lies somewhere in the intersection of where the opportunity is within the customer space, right? Do you have the right to win with your solutions that you offer? And then basically also looking at whether you have, because ABM cannot be just done by a marketer. Like it is not like running an event agenda. It's like you need the organization support to run an ABM, because and you need sales, you need your tech teams, you need all the rest of the people with you on board, right? So how that's the third important part, which is alignment across team. So that's how you basically get your the entire ABM team in place, right? What ABM delivers for me in a way is that it kind of is the tool that builds trust, right? As we start with that, and trust is kind of there's a book called I think I'm forgetting the name. It was like a trusted advisor or something.
The trusted advisor.
Yeah, if
it has the trust equation in it.
Yes, that trust equation, and I so much believe in it, right? Which is like, if I remember correctly, it was credibility, reliability, and there was a third piece, which is intimacy. And
Competence
then
or intimacy. Yes.
intimacy. It was intimacy.
It's been a couple of years since I read that book.
Yeah. I was just trying to remember that, and then you put yourself self orientation in the denominator, right? Which is, so I think that is what an account based marketing builds within a large. It kind of help you build that trust with the credibility that you have with your thought leadership, of your solution, the reliability which you bring with with your consistency of the solutions, what your customer base that you have, and then of course the intimacy that you create with a customer first mindset, right? Where you help customer understand. So, but how do you approach ABM widely differs. Many a times ABM is construed as a 101 engagement, right? An account workshop, or a one stop interaction with the customer. What I feel ABM is a mix of one to one, one to few, and one to many kind of engagements, right? For example, you could when we look at ABM, we look at how is it that I am creating high value multiple interactions with the customers. Account workshop would be part of it. There would be roundtables that would be part of it. How can I create value of my customer in certain roundtables? What are the topics of interest this customer is looking at? And can I facilitate few conversations and discussions with that customer there? And even if I'm having a very large event, and if the customer has an opinion and a thought leadership on a topic, can I have that customer come in as either an attendee or a guest or a speaker in some of those events? So how am I constantly creating value as a brand for that customer in knowing not only just about my solution, but also things about what he cares about? What are the things which are priority for that customer, right? What is it that they're going through? And the other part about it is also, which in accounts is a timely communication with the customer on certain events that are happening in the customer requirements. If there is, for example, a customer has seen a great financial results and you saw that reports coming out, can we have some of your top senior executive actually sending out a congratulatory mail? It got nothing to do with your solutions, got nothing to do, but it just creates an engagement and intimacy. So I think the way ABMs are evolving, it's quite there's a lot to be done in that space. There is a lot of prioritization required because ABM is something that you can't do with all your customers. So you have to use this tool judiciously because it's really resource intensive.
Which is great in a way, right? Because it forces you to prioritize and not just spray and pray.
80-20 rules works everywhere. So I think you have to keep on applying that unless you get to that top tier where you think the ABM investment is justified.
Well, and it's interesting you bring up the trust equation because the self-interest part is such a huge part of it. And the minute you have kind of any self-interest, you basically wipe out any kind of work that you're doing on the top end in terms of credibility and reliability, right? And I think the thing about ABM that's it seems to me to be kind of fundamental and maybe even underlying the philosophy is you truly are just trying to understand one person, one company, one set of people. And so you kind of inevitably reduce the self-interest. The more you are kind of this one-to-many, as I say, like spray and pray marketing, kind of throw something at the wall and see what sticks, the more likely you are to be self-interested, to reveal some self-interest in that marketing that you're doing. And I think we're trained to smell it. And I think increasingly, especially now, and you said this earlier, it's such a good point, there's so much media out there. Every one of your buyers is being inundated. And I think a lot of the media, this is actually, I think, a bit of a good thing. A lot of the media is self-interested. Yeah. How many LinkedIn messages do you get? Hey, here's my product. Buy, right? So if you can be that one person who's genuinely interested in delivering value to your customer, I think there's a real opportunity there, especially right now.
Totally understand. I'm totally with you on that one. Absolutely.
I think the other thing that, and just coming back to something you said a little while ago, is just around How do we talk about, a benefit to the customer? And just to make that real, at least, and something that we're doing a lot of, is everything is AI right now, obviously. And the refrain that I keep coming back to is AI is a feature of your software. It is a feature of the service you provide. It is not the ultimate benefit. And we have a number of folks who are saying to us, well, we have to advertise that it's AI. We have to advertise it's AI because that's, that's how we know we're keeping up. And that's true. But what is the AI doing for your customer? What problem that your customer specifically has is the AI solving? Because in a world where every one of your competitors is also implementing AI, the person who wins the sale is going to be the person who convinces the customer, not that they're using AI, but that they're using it in the best way. And they're using it in a way that is specific to the problem that customer specifically is experiencing. And maybe in a way that kind of comes back to the personas as well. Is not, hey, we're using AI, and the HR person is saying, oh my God, this is going to be a mess. And the, IT and the technology people are saying, oh my God, let's think about data security. And then everyone's worried,
Yeah.
So it's a matter of, it's not, I feel like the work we do, Prateek, is not complicated and it's not rocket science.
No, not at all.
You just have to be a little bit humble and understand that you're just trying to help other people.
Absolutely, absolutely. So rightly said, right? That it's just so simple, as simple as that, like you right. Just be humble to understand what your customer needs, and all you need to do as marketers articulate it well in the way the customer understands it, how they'd like to look at it, how they'd like to experience it, and basically your job is done there, right? And that's as simple as it can get, really. And to your AI problem, absolutely. AI, again, a feature functionality of AI is not what customers interested in anymore. It's crossed that bridge now. What customer wants to know is how is it going to solve their business problems, and that's where the real value of AI would come from. It's not. It's a means to an end. It's not
exactly
right. So
yeah. Well, Prateek, this has been so interesting talking to you and getting your perspective. I've learned so much today about just your world and going to market, especially in a big heterogeneous company like SAP and with a solution like SuccessFactors. It's definitely, we ended on a note that talked about it being easy, but actually I am sure that there's so much that goes on in the back end, and it's been really interesting to chat with you about some of that complexity. I imagine just the tip of the iceberg. Is there anything else you want to leave anyone with before we wrap up?
I think there is a lot of the way how AI is now coming in, since we just mentioned that in the world of marketing. We as marketers and everybody is experiencing a lot of disruption. But what I feel is right now there's a huge opportunity for us to leverage AI in all that we do and across our steps. So I would just encourage everyone and just to stay curious, to understand what's coming, and not necessarily look at it as a negative impact on what's happening and what we are doing or a risk, but look at it as an opportunity to do more with what you know and what you have, and how it's adding and augmenting your own efforts, right? So that's the way I think we should all look at AI and just redefine what we offer.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great piece of advice. Thank you. Prateek, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but if someone's listening to this and they want to follow you and see your journey and see your posts, where can they find you?
So I have, of course, you can find me on LinkedIn, Prateek Mathur, and I also recently started a page on Instagram called Business Yogi. That's where I am basically sharing some of the books that I've read and some of the learnings that I have. So they can definitely follow. It's just started, so you probably just see 1 or 2 reviews there. But yeah, there'll be more coming soon.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for sharing that, and I'm gonna take a look at that as well. I appreciate it. Folks, thank you very much for listening to This has been the FIDE Podcast. I'm Dan Barish, founder of FIDE. We're the agency that helps big, complex B2B companies simplify their message and go to market. So, Prateek, thank you very, very much for coming on today. Appreciate it. It's been so much fun. I've learned so much. And we'll speak to you soon.
Thank you for having me. Bye.